This shit is good. I'm off the yerba right now. Shout out to Kenny Beats. Today's video is going to be about EQ. Now, about a year ago, I did make an EQ video, but I always felt like I could always give more. So that's exactly what this video is going to be. Me giving more and me showing more, as well as my process and different things and different thought patterns and stuff that you can apply. So whether you're a beginner, intermediate, advanced, you could always learn something new. So I'm not gonna hold you anymore. I'm gonna jump into FL, and then I'm just gonna share with you the basics first and then the other advanced stuff. Now, if you don't know, EQ is basically a set of bands where it helps you increase or decrease the volume of certain frequencies. That way you can shape the sound and give sounds their own space. I know when I first started, I used to do this. I used to use every band just so I can feel like I'm doing something. And in all actuality, that shit sounded trash. So I don't recommend that. If you are doing drastic EQ curves like this, I would say that's more so for like sound design. That's for like the people that, you know, go out and get a stick and hit the tree and record it and then, you know, turn it into a kick drum or a snare or some shit. You don't need to do all that. Contrary to popular belief, you don't need to EQ everything, because a lot of these sounds from these VSTs, they're already EQ'd and they come high quality. The most you'll really need to do is high pass or low pass, or just add little cuts and boosts. If you watch Genius videos, you'll probably see stuff like this, or even if you watch an engineer talk, you'll see stuff like that. You won't see anything like, you know, doing all of this stuff, because it's not necessary. Now, a lot of these bands, they all have the same features. You can do, you know, low passes, high passes, band passes, peaking, high shelves, all sorts of stuff. They all serve a different purpose. But for right now, I'm just gonna focus on the low pass and the high pass. I'm gonna use this loop as an example, and I'm just gonna share with you how to low pass and high pass and just the effects that it would give. Now, if you don't know, high passes basically look like this, and low passes look like this. High pass basically can take away the lower frequencies and give you that telephone effect if you pull it too far. But if you have a low pass, which is the opposite, it takes away the high frequencies and it makes it sound like you're outside of the club. This is generally like shit like what Mike Will does and stuff like that. So here's a good example. He'll do that, and then he'll bring it all the way back right when the drop happens, so that way it can emphasize on the drums. You know what I mean? Shit like that. This is what it'll sound like high pass. And then if I turn it up some more, it'll give it that telephone effect. Now that you know the basics of EQ, now I can share with you guys the different types of EQ and my process. Now, this is a standard EQ. Every DAW has a standard EQ, a stock EQ. Whether it be Ableton or you're using your phone and you're using GarageBand, every DAW has an EQ system. Even SSL consoles have like knobs to, you know, EQ stuff. And that's generally what brings me to this next point. There's digital EQs and there's analog EQs. Digital EQs are basically like this. And then analog EQs, they're generally the same thing. Though, even though this is digital, this is emulating hardware. This is basically giving the sound a lot more color. That's why people like analog EQs. They're not that precise. They, instead of having like a narrow kind of boost or a narrow kind of cut, it's like they have these bands that are like this. And, you know, that's like the imperfections of it. That's what makes these sounds sound a lot fuller and a lot more warm. It's not perfect. There's imperfections there, but it works. Also, a lot of these EQs, you know, like the SSL, like the Pultex, they're just emulations of like analog hardware. They give that certain type of color and they give that certain type of hiss to it as well. Because like I said, analog gear, it's old, but it works and it gives it that heaviness to it. Now digital EQs, that's more so like parametric EQs and, you know, fab filters, and then, you know, EQ wise, which I big up this EQ a lot for a lot of beginners because it has like guidelines. And even if you're not a beginner, I would still recommend this because you have different charts and shit like that, and then you can like follow the guidelines. Like right here, if I feel like there's enough warmth or mud here, then I could just eliminate that This isn't an endorsement or anything like that. I'm not getting paid by them. I just really fuck with good products, and this one's never done me. This is like the best $50 I spent. Back to what I was saying about the analog EQ. Analog EQ curves generally look like this. So when you try to make a precise bump, it'll be like something like this, and it'll make the sound a lot fuller. A lot of people like to use that for like making samples and stuff like that because, you know, it makes it sound different. It just, there's a character to it. And analog EQs are character adding EQs. That's why there's like a whole bunch of like different ones, like the APIs and all that kind of stuff. In the link down below, I'm gonna have like free EQs. You know, these are gonna be the free ones that I'm giving away, but they're basically just the stuff that I just mentioned. So I'll have that like linked down below, so that way you can use them and, you know, you'll get the same kind of thing. And when it comes to my process, I follow 4 different steps. Step 1 is identifying what's the main sound that I want to be everything tailored to. So if it's like a keyboard part, or say I have a loop, all the other sounds, if I add other instruments, have to be tailored to that. They can't be the main attraction as well. They have to fit in with the main attraction, if you get what I'm saying. Then step 2 is cleaning up the frequency. Step 3 is taking out the resonant frequencies. And step 4 is shaping it. Now, I made a quick little loop with one of my one-shots, and I threw some regular drums on there just so I can show you guys the difference between analog and digital EQs. This without the effects. You hear how muddy everything sounds? Now with the effects. Digital. Same thing, muddy. But when I use that analog EQ, it's different. Now if you notice between the analog and the digital one, the analog one sounded a lot fuller, and the digital one sounded, it wasn't as full as the analog one. Alright, so now I reset all the digital EQs, and I'm gonna use a different loop. So that way I'm not cheating, I'm not making no, you know, previous EQ decisions. I'm just gonna start it from fresh. So this is the process. Find what's the main sound. So I have this loop. This is gonna be the main one. So that was step 1. Step 2 is high pass and low pass everything. Now when it comes to high passing and low passing, what I'll do generally is bring it to the point where I can hear changes in the sound, and then I'll just back off of it. Okay, that was step 1. You can hear the difference. If you listen, the bass is more prevalent when I take off the EQ, but when I put the EQ on, then that's when it still sounds good, but there's not that much bass that's going to conflict with the 808 when I have that coming in. So there's the first step. Second step, we'll do notch filtering. Now you could do this with a parametric EQ. You can bring this up like 12 dBs, narrow the Q, and then do a search and sweep and do it throughout the whole EQ spectrum. And you're really finding resonant frequencies. If you don't know what resonant frequencies are, they're basically high-pitched sounds that can muddy up your mix. You could also find them in the mids as well. I would recommend that you don't do this with 808s because 808s are tone based, and the resonant frequencies that you take out of there are really going to shape the EQ and kind of make it sound weaker. So I'm going to use FabFilter EQ, and I'm just going to change the Q to 8, and then I'm going to bring the dB to 12. Alright, and then I'll just sweep and then just find everything. And I'll use this little headphone knob to narrow down the frequencies, and then when I find that there's some music left in there, I'll just tighten it up and then bring it down however many dBs to make it sound cleaner. Right there. Now listen to it before. And now listen to it after the, notch filters. you'll notice a huge difference. I like to follow the 4x6 rule, so anything past 4 and 6 dB, that's when the EQ decisions start becoming more noticeable. And now the next thing I'll use is an EQ to basically shape the sound. You don't have to use these EQs. You can do this all within the parametric EQ or the standard stock EQ. You don't need these VSTs. I just like using them because, for one, you know, they have different functions. So I'll use this. And I'll just follow the guidelines. One more presence. Now listen to it without it. Look at all those EQ decisions I made to change the sound. It's really that simple. I could drag the same sample and put it in the mixer where I have the analog EQs, and I could do the same thing. That's before, and that's after. Now I don't have to do too much with the analog EQ. I don't have to do all those different kind of things with the digital one, because like I said, with the analog one, it's more so character and tonal, you know, shaping. So that's really why I like using that. And plus, the same decisions that I'll make with the digital EQ, I'll base it off my eyes. With the analog one, I'm basing it more so off my ears, which it should always be. I just know that, you know, like when I use the parametric EQ or any other EQ that I showed, I know where to go to. Which brings me to my next point. You don't have to EQ kicks and snares and all that kind of shit. You really don't. And if you do, be very minimal with that. A lot of these sound kits that you buy from other producers, they already sound good. And there's no need to already kind of mess up and throw extra seasoning on the sauce when it's perfect. So I'm going to pull up one of my beats and I'm going to show you guys how many EQs I have on all the sounds, as well as, you know, the decisions and why. Alright, so I'll pull up one of my beats. Now I'm going to select one section and just loop it, and I'm going to put an EQ on the selection. Basically, whatever I select, it's going to show what frequencies are pulling through. So I'm going to pull up the main EQ and I'm just going to have it side by side, and I'm going to go through and show you every mixer, everything on there. So I'm just going to solo the melody. And you can see, this is the frequencies of the 808. No EQ, it's turned off. You see these frequencies right here? That's filling up that. You see that, what? 63. That's filling up right there. That 5K range, that's filling up over here, giving that presence. Same thing. That open hat is over here in that 6K range, filling up over here. Filling up right here in that middle. That little, you know, laser effect is filling up like right here. This is filling up like between 1K and up. Like, it's not too crazy. There's nothing crazy going on, honestly. That's how you get your drums to really stand out. See, the problem is a lot of people think that they need to EQ every sound, every drum, and all that kind of shit. And really, you don't have to do that. I would actually recommend, if you do EQ because you're adding character or something to it, you know, as opposed to just like, okay, I want to make this louder. These kits are already loud. They already sound good, and you don't need to do too much. So that's gonna be it for today's video. I bought a webcam, so I'm gonna be making a ton more videos fast. I'm not gonna be a perfectionist about it. Cop the new kit, link's gonna be down below, as well as download the other free VSTs that I have down below. Yeah, I hope you guys like this video, and comment down below. And let me know what else you guys wanna see and what you guys think of this video.